I'm Burak Asiliskender, the chair of this session on design and design issues. Here are Melis, YAZICI, Doğa, ÇAKMAK, Şeyda EMEKCİ, and Faruk, ÜNAL are here. Hopefully our other presenters will be here in short. To using the time efficiently, let's start with Şeyda EMEKCİ. Şeyda Hocam, she's from Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University. She's an assistant professor, and she has a very exciting presentation based on nature-centered design. And she's focusing on and criticizing on the human effect, humanity effect, and the nature with the humans and human and the nature contradiction. Şeyda Hocam, floor is yours.
Thank you, Hocam. Yes.
We couldn't hear the sound.
Centered design and comparative analysis in current architectural approaches. My article aims to describe nature-centered design through the architectural journey of humanity. It also seeks an answer to the question of whether it is possible for humanity to create nature-centered architecture. Let's get started. As you all know, climate change is one of the main issues that humankind has faced. It is significantly connected with the way people live can. It impacts the land use, productivity, food security, ecology, and so on. It causes drought, storm, heat wave, rising sea level, and so on. If I need to sum up all impacts, it affects everything regarding living being. That's why adaptation is obviously unavoidable. Everything I have mentioned so far is related to the problem. What about the solution? Well, the problem is clear. So what has been done so far as a solution? Of course, humanity took a lot of measures. As we became aware of the damage, we changed our measures. Our measures getting more preventative than correction, more holistic than focusing isolated part, and more related to human. If we talk about human nature and climate change, it automatically comes down to built environment because it is one of the biggest causes of climate change. People have sought various ways to reduce the effect of the building environment, and some approaches have been highlighted. We exactly know that nature can survive in the absence of human, but human cannot survive in the absence of nature. Nature has the potential to renew itself unless human intervene. This reality has made us think. For present and future generation, it is necessary to link buildings to their origin in climate, soil, and location. Buildings and communities must be integrated in a sensible design that integrates life and sensing technology, including key components of light, water, healthy landscape, and clean air. Some approaches have emerged to achieve this. These are green, ecological, sustainable, biophilic design. Let's have a look at more closely. Green design. The term green became a popular slogan in 1980s. Green design referred to a feature of the design that intentionally attempt to make the finished product as environmentally friendly as feasible. In architecture, green design is an approach that minimizes negative health and environmental consequences. Between the 1990s and the 2000s, the term green was gradually replaced by sustainability. Ecological design. Ecology was considered a branch of biology until 1970. This expression gained popular a few years later, and it began to be known for architecture. Ecological design was simple to establish human-nature connection with environmental concern. It is a human-centered approach. Sustainable design. It is the most widely used and known term of today's environmental friendly approaches. The basic idea of the sustainability is to consume as little energy as possible. At the center of this approach, like the other approach, is the human being. Biophilic design. The main purpose of the biophilic design is to create suitable spaces and eliminate the negative psychological consequences of human in a built environment. This approach is entirely people-oriented, like the other approaches. Human-centered design. The common feature of all these approaches is that they put human at their center as well as reducing the damage to the environment. This is never a bad thing, but we are not alone in this world. How many designers consider coral reefs when designing? I am not sure, but maybe a few. Because rising global sea level or species do not affect the success of our business and our building. Because we are designing for human, not non-human creatures. We know the problem, also know the solution. All approaches such as green, ecological, sustainable, biophilic, and so on refer to technical solutions that are essentially unsustainable systems. They may slow things down, but they cannot lead us to genuinely healthy, green world. They can increase material and energy efficiency, but they cannot reorganize development based on the resources significantly. Now, time to talk about the nature-centered design. Nature has the potential to renew itself unless humans intervene, as I mentioned earlier. When all human design, buildings and services, resource extraction, agriculture and industrial processes are evaluated, and understanding that brings together processes by designing infrastructure that imitates and replace how the nature world works, while putting all other the living creature at the center must be developed. Take an example. Before the construction, the location was forest, wilderness, agricultural land, and marsh, each with its own metabolic fluxes, which converted solar power, absorbed carbon dioxide, produced oxygen, and provided habitats, each with its own metabolic cycle to a multitude of tiny animals. The act of construction modifies all these cycles. For constructing the building, wood are harvested in the remote places, plastic are produced, metal are refined, and so on. When the building is finished, from here begins the period of human-centered methods. There will be a new series of cycles. The building is heated, cooled, and lighted by gas, oil, electricity. Carbon dioxide production and the waste heat are discharged in the air. The inhabitants burn fuel to and from the building. Food cultivated in remote areas and trash disposed of in landfill in both and consumed. In and out with human waste and other that reduce, clean water is pumped or released. And in the conclusion, to sum up, if we believe that humans are the only remarkable species on the planet, we will continue to harm the nature without considering the first processes described. The future of humanity is dependent on nature, moving away from a completely human-centered perspective of the world and building with nature will be a critical tool in developing a crucial new architecture for empathetic design. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks very much, Şeyda Hocam. That's a very nice presentation. I highly advise you taking the questions at the end of the panel. Maybe it will be better to questionize everything, all of the produced knowledge together. We can easily discuss all of the issues. Let's go with Arda FİLİBELİOÐLU. with his presentation, including with Yeşim, Kamile, AKTUİLU, as I read from their abstract. And I think it's also an exciting presentation about building information systems and its features. Arda Bey, this is your floor. Please go on.
Hello, everybody. I'm Arda FİLİBELİOДLU. I'm a master student at the Structure and Construction branch at the 9 Eylül University. Today, I'm going to talk about the features with the information, other features with the information buildings. First of all, introduction. Information buildings are generally built in high interaction with the people, while the construction process of these structures are easy. Their design process are more difficult than the construction process. Information buildings are generally designed with the aim of the interacting with people. They are buildings whose the design requirement must be associated with the human emotions. In this way, their design should be suitable for people's living characteristics. Information buildings whose design are in harmony with the people's daily lives, a design that can be considered successful. For the culture, since ancient civilization, meeting the shelter needs of people has been in line with the culture, identity, and tradition of the people. Every civilization has its own characteristics. One of the important titles for the information buildings is the title of the culture. Information buildings are buildings that needs more interaction with the people. In this case, learning the culture of the region and the daily lives of the people living that region provides a great advantage in planning the design of the information buildings. In this way, while the architectural works are being completed, the importance of the features that can be called the other part from the technical features is noticed. And identity is a social phenomenon that a society has and has effect on every moment of its life. Every society has a lifestyle with their own identities. And since information buildings are social buildings, the mentioned works should be carried out more carefully. The information buildings to be built should be in harmony with the identity characteristics of the society. In this way, it will serve the purpose of the building by increasing interaction with the people. When the architectural values were examined under the title of the tradition, it was seen that the civilization had historical habits. For the example, Infobox is an important information building. The building was located in the city center of Berlin in 1995. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, the building was used as an information office, where the control of the redesign and construction of the city and region was carried out. For the architectural detail, there is a technical details of Infobox, the buildings. And the buildings has 7 meters height from the ground level, and each floor have 5 meters between them. Total floor height is 15 meters. On the ground level, they use circular steel column with the concrete field. Their diameters are 40 centimeters. On the other parts of the building, they use I-beams. For the facade, they clad with the steel panels, which are used as 2.5 meters to 0.5. For the culture, the city center culture to be recreated is to ensure that the people following construction process are included in the culture. In this way, inclusion of the local people in a large-scale planning will ensure the development of the community culture. Identity, the building was built with the aim of the controlling construction site operation, and in addition to the purpose, the local people were planning to gain habit of the region. In this example, when the Infobox building is the information buildings is examined under the title of the identity, it has the interaction between the city center created in the region and the local people, and has provided the development of the social identity of the local people. The traditional, the Infobox information building, which is examined under the theme of the tradition, was examined as an element that provides formation in a new order. Examined as in the face of the situation, the building design was built with the structural system in mind. After its construction, the building was dismantled and removed from its location. As a result, culture, identity, and tradition features is the information buildings were examined. In line with the examination, it has been seen that there is a required design features in the information buildings. With the mentioned effects, it has been seen that people interact with the information buildings, and in line with this interaction, it has a positive effect on purpose of use of the building. Other so-called issues should be addressed more in order to provide optimum benefit in information buildings. These are the previously mentioned issues: culture, identity, and tradition. And there's my references. For the final, I want to special thank to my teacher, Professor Dr. Yeşim, Kamile, AKTUİLU, and Livenarch community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Arda. That's a very nice information. We have to know much more about building information systems and the design issues. Thanks a lot. And now let's move to South Africa with a very exciting project criticism. Melis YAZICI and Serap ÖZTÜRK are questioning Vele School in the context of sustainable behavior. So I give the floor Melis YAZICI. She's a research assistant, as I know, in Karadeniz Technical University, and Serap ÖZTÜRK is also an associate professor in the Karadeniz Technical University. Melis, are you ready to present your paper?
Hi, you are all welcome. Let me introduce myself. I am Melis YAZICI. I am a PhD student in Karadeniz Technical University, and I am a research assistant. I would like to share with you our paper we prepared with Serap ÖZTÜRK. The name of paper is The Other View of Sustainability, Vele School in the Context of Sustainable Behavior. You can see presentation content on the slide. I would like to start with section of introduction. Sustainable behavior is generally defined as environmental responsibility behavior in all aspects of an individual's daily activities. The individual is responsible for the environment in all his actions. In addition to evaluating the concept of sustainability in environmental, social, and economic dimensions in building designs, user behavior should also be considered as other dimension of sustainability. This paper aims to look at sustainability studies in architecture from another perspective. User-space interaction is important in internalizing sustainable behavior. Therefore, the concept of sustainable behavior can be considered as another dimensions of sustainability in the relationship between the architect, space, and user. This paper seeks for exemplifying the issue of sustainability as a behavior beyond being economic, social, and environmental through Vele School, which she redesigned by East Coast Architecture in 2009. Chapter 2, Sustainable Behavior. Kurt Lewin, one of the important names of social psychology, introduced the concept of field theory. The basic assumptions of Levin's field theory is that an individual's behavior should be understood as a function of the interaction between an individual and his psychological understanding of the physical and social environment. According to BF equation developed by Lewin, behavior is defined as a continuous interaction function of the individual and environment. In the third part of the presentation, I will talk about the Vele School as an example of sustainable behavior. You can see table 1 on the slide. The desired sustainable goals will be achieved by interconnecting the stage in the design process. In this direction, Vele School's design process was examined through the concept of motivation, learning, personality, and social behavior. By matching this behavioral concept with the actions of the architect, sustainable behavior was emphasized in the combination of the material theory and design process. When Vele School's design process is examined in the context of the concept of motivation, the MAP workshop photography workshop, meeting with community leaders, issuing construction bulletins, site tour during construction, local people's involvement in construction activities, and the use of sustainable systems are matched to concept of motivation. These actions are all such actions that motivate the user and local people to sustainable behavior. In the map workshop, the concept related to map of area were introduced to students. The architects who turned the map workshop into a fun activity interacted with students. The actions increases the motivation of both students and architects. Lipin's theory views learning as a relative process in which a student develops new insights or replicates old ones. According to the theory, learning is not a mechanical process that connects stimuli and responses within a biological organism. Field psychology explains the development of insight as a change in the cognitive structure of the living space. When the design process of Vele School is examined in the context of the concept of learning, the map workshop, photography workshop, site tours during construction, and the local people's involvement in the construction activity match the concept of learning. In the map workshop, the architects learned about the physical, cultural, and social aspects of the place, whereas the students and the local people learned by experiencing the building, construction, production process during the construction site tours and the local people taking part in the construction activities. Persons that environment are in constant communication and exchange. When Vele School's design process is examined in the concept of personality, the photography workshop and meeting with community leaders match the concept of personality. In the photography workshop, users took photos of the daily life of the local people in the surrounding area. With these photographs, the architects have defined user characteristics such as local people's culture, personal specialties. At meetings with community leaders, architects gained the trust of the local community, and these meetings allowed architects to get to know the characteristics of community. When this design process of Vele School is examined in the context of the concept of social behavior, the actions of using sustainable systems and issuing construction bulletins match the concept of social behavior. Therefore, instead of conclusion, Vele School with its design, education, sustainable and inclusive approach to continuous learning, the importance it attaches to property and its economic, cultural and recreational connectivity has become a model applicable to wider community. In this project, which uses the possibilities at the maximum level, a campus layout has been created that makes sustainable behavior. The actions taken during the design process of the buildings were evaluated in the context behavioral theory. Therefore, the perspective or other architecture has been brought to sustainability. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Melis. It's a very exciting project and its applications. Thank you very much to sharing us this critical information. Let's move to Istanbul to go to Yeditepe University. Assistant Professor Faruk ÜNAL and Doğa ÇAKMAK are presenting the standards of custom-aesthetic housing in architecture. So the housing is a very well-known problem of architecture, and they are criticizing the technological advances, new production techniques, the features of mass production. I think it will be a kind of a fruitful presentation to all of us. Faruk Hocam, Doğa Hanım, this is your floor.
Yes, thank you.
Study is prepared by Doğa ÇAKMAK and Faruk ÜNAL from Yeditepe University. Our topic is From Standards to Customized Housing in Architecture. The important points mentioned in this presentation are mass production, mass customization as a step towards the application and customization of this technique to residences. Our content starts with the standardization of living spaces and the perspectives of different cultures on it, its evaluation, and the problems that arise. Then, with the customization, the concepts of creating diversity from uniformity and flexibility will be opened. In the third part, a proposal about the use of mass customization will be created and concluded. Standardization of living spaces. The use of mass production techniques in construction started with the closing of the housing deficit in a short time and cheaply after the Second World War. These buildings, which were designed especially for workers and their families in industrial centers, attracted the attention of modernist architects over time. It was a dream of the architects of the period to produce housing parts as Ford produces car parts on the mass production line. Especially England, Scandinavian countries, and Japan have more specific studies compared to other cultures. The biggest driving force in mass production in England was the colonization movement, and then England became a pioneer with the invention of corrugated iron, which can be considered as the building block of prefabricated systems. In order to eliminate the post-war housing deficit, the government of the period started to use factories for the production of housing parts. The design of Scandinavian mass-produced residential pieces began in the mid-19th century and has grown rapidly. The houses of Scandinavian countries, which paid most of their post-war debts with prefabricated housing parts, still consist of a considerable amount of mass-produced housing parts. In Japan, in the same period, mass production technique was tried to be used effectively in the metabolism movement, and the pioneers of the movement were supported by the government of the period. By supporting the social and cultural infrastructure of the Japanese people, the technology of the period was used efficiently, and mass production was interpreted differently from the West. Ideologically, England, Scandinavian countries in terms of product, Japan in terms of process are in the leading position in mass production houses. Its expansionist principle pushed England to use technology more effectively, to use building materials specific to their country in mass production houses, and to try to personalize it by detailing, develop the product in Scandinavian countries, and finally, developing the idea of mass production by evaluating the social history and resources of its people efficiently has accelerated the process in Japan. Still, since the mass production structures were produced considering the post-war period conditions, they could not adapt to the present day. Here, the main problems can be counted as uniformity, not being flexible to develop, the uncanny created by the class difference, and the housing pollution caused by the disuse and demolition of useless houses. At this point, we need to take a look at customization. Throughout history, people have customized their living spaces according to themselves. The key to flexible space is changeability. Changeable space definitions, space elements or location, as well as changing users and their wishes and needs should also be considered. The need for shelter, which is a basic need, should be both economical and sustainable, adaptable to the conditions in which it is located, and also be personalized. This will be possible by changing and adapting the construction techniques. As a suggestion, we have brought the concept of mass customization, which brings together mass production and customization to be examined at the housing scale. The most important point here is that the users determine the space they will live in, and that designers, architects, and engineers take part in the role of support, not the main creator. 3 steps can be counted as identifying, designing, and combining. First, the user's wants and needs should be identified. The design of life modules requires the active use of information technologies. The key is to recognize that living spaces and usage patterns can change as the user's lifestyle changes. In the second step, information technologies will play an active role. Multiple suggestions can be presented to the user at the same time with its rapid evaluation and probability calculation capabilities. Afterwards, it can be made suitable for the user as soon as possible by using mass production techniques during the production phase. The third step is the main element is adapting these living spaces, which have different space definitions that can be combined, added or subtracted to city life or rural life. This is structure and infrastructure design and development. Continuous and fixed structures should be designed in the centers of transportation networks so that living spaces can be connected in different ways and benefit from common infrastructure services. Conclusion part. It is necessary to develop housing, which is a consumer product, and turn it into a product that can meet the needs of the user at the same time with less cost and shorter production process. In order to achieve this situation, it is necessary to overcome the traditional methods and traditional building materials that lead architects to design living spaces, not the elements that make up living spaces. Afterwards, mass production, which is used in the production of all kinds of products today, should be used more actively in housing production. The ways of using this technology together with customization should be investigated so that a new production system should be tried to be adapted to the present day and focused on the changing wishes and needs of the user. Here are the sources used in the study. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very nice presentation with lots of questions on my mind. But I have one more question, not integrated with your presentation, to the organization committee. As all we know, there's one more presentation, but the owners are not here, Umut Boraşahin and Esin Kömez Dağlıoğlu. The committee, what do you think about? Do we listen the presentation or the recording here or not? What is your advice to us? Is there somebody over there?
We leave this decision to you.
Okay, let's listen because it's very exciting. They are examining the Arter building in Istanbul. They have some engagements with its form and its structure and so on.
Oh, sorry, we don't have his video to share, so we can just skip it.
Okay, so we are just skipping it. That's okay. So this is the end of the presentations. We listened 4 different presentations today for this session. The first one is from Şeyda EMEKCİ. She's questioning nature-centered design with the anthropocenic effects and issues, human-related design problems, and so on. And then we'll listen Arda FİLİBELİOÐLU and Yeşim Kamile AKTUİLU. They are questioning the information building systems and its features. Then we go to South Africa for Vele school and the school design of the design facilities of the school and the applications in the school. Melis, YAZICI and Serap, DURMUŞ, ÖZTÜRK give a brief information about this school. And lastly, Doğa, ÇAKMAK and Faruk, ÜNAL questioning the standards of housing architecture, the mass customization of housing. So are there any questions from the audience? We have some questions. From the attendees, you can easily write down to the question and answer panel, or maybe if you raise your hand, we can easily give floor to you to ask online. Okay, I have some questions to starting up this session. Maybe this really helps someone to ask some more questions more. The first one is to Şeyda Hocam. You are questioning human and non-human behaviors. And at your presentation, you are questioning the architecture as an element of human-centric design. So what do you think non-human-centric design?
Actually, Hocam, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking, and glad to hear such feedbacks. Please consider this work as a new introductory article in this field. Of course, it's possible to add and remove many things. We are gonna find out as we discuss it, because these are really very open to development, and I'm also eager to learn. But it also very limited sources. And the more we discuss it, the more concrete and strong definition and principle we can come up with. It's possible to divide those approaches, I mean the environmental friendly approaches, into two sections. First one is, like you said, the human-centered design, and the second one is the nature-centered design. The side of the human-centered design is so really so crowded, and there are many different approach are there in this section. But in the other part, I mean the nature-centered side, there are many seats in this place. Yeah, we need to discuss a lot in this part. And the nature-centered approaches focus on the process before the building is built, unlike the human-centered approach. And actually, the nature-centered design, the nature-centered approach put nature, only nature, not just the human, at their center, unlike the human-centered design. And how can
maybe I add one more word to you to help you and to take this question one more. What do you think about the Anthropocenic or post-Anthropocenic situation? You know, we are questioning the Anthropocene and post-Anthropocene nowadays, and now we are on the era of the post-Anthropocene with some developments on the technology and so on. And what do you think about the other species without human or without nature or without, I don't know, animals and so on? What do you think about the technological improvements or technological entities in this position, in this situation?
I think that's a really interesting question. I didn't think it before, but if we add the technology, we can find a really wonderful result. But we exactly know that the future of the humanity depends on the nature, and we are strongly believe that we are not alone in this world. And if we believe the human in the only important species on the planet, of course we will continue to damage the nature without the thinking, the process, the build. How can I say the process before the building is built? But that's really interesting, and if we need to put, if we add the technology in this discussion, and the results would be very excited. I will think that. Thank you for your interpretation.
Thank you very much. Any comments or anyone would like to say something from the audience? Okay, I have one more question to Faruk, ÜNAL, and Doğa ÇAKMAK about the housing, the customized housing, especially mass customization on housing. You know, we are in a transformation nowadays, maybe since the beginning of the 21st century or at the end of the 20th century. Maybe thinking about the beginning of the 20th century, our living attitudes are changed dramatically with the industrialization, and now they are also transforming again and again with the technology and the communication approaches. What do you think about the formation of house in the future? What do you imagine for a house? I don't know, maybe in the next 10 years.
I think it can be our proposal, maybe.
Yeah.
This is why we wrote about it, because this is a new area. This is a new technique to use in architecture. Because of course we use mass production in early years, but we don't think to use it with customization before. We can try to use it in housing with innovation technologies, and it can create a new housing type in the future.
Okay, what kind of a new housing type? What do you imagine for? we have some projections on this housing. I don't know. Can you say that there will be no kitchen in 10 years? Or I don't know, any kind of projections?
No, of course, I cannot say something like that. But if you don't need a kitchen, why do you why do you need a house with a kitchen, for example?
Yes.
Actually, I'm thinking about housing like our telephones. Maybe it can be someday. Maybe we can customize it in our lifestyles in future. This is what I think, I guess.
Now we are just starting to customize with household applications, using with applications on our phones, on our mobiles, that will transfer in a different way, in my opinion, in short. Okay, thank you very much, Doğa Hocam. Faruk Hocam, would you like to add something?
Also, I want to add something. This research generally focuses on mass production from the state of art in architecture. And we are thinking on how can we suggest solution to architecture's this kind of problems. And these are the maybe first steps to an information and communication technology-based research for these fields, I can say.
Thank you very much. I have a question to Melis. What do you propose to us? What can we learn from this Vele school? It's very exciting design. It has a very exciting design, and there are lots of exciting applications in it. What do you think for the education, or for what we think on it, especially based on school design process? Melis.
Okay. I see that all the participants are Turkish. Can I speak Turkish if there is no problem?
Excuse me, I couldn't hear. There's a connection problem on my computer. Could you repeat it if it's possible?
Can I speak Turkish? I see that all the participants are Turkish. If there is no problem.
You can go on. It's not a problem. Go on.
Okay. Hocam burada Vele Okulu Güney Afrika'da yeniden bir tasarım projesi. Burada bu örneği seçmemizdeki sebep hem ödül almış bir proje olması hem de Güney Afrika'daki okulun yerel halkla birlikte tasarım sürecine dahil edilmesi beni çok etkiledi. Bu yüzden aslında Vele Okulu analiz etmek istedim. Burada tasarım sürecinde en başından itibaren tasarımcı hem yerel halkı hem öğrenciyi tasarımdan inşaat sürecine kadar kattığı bir tasarım süreci, inşaat süreci var. Bu da hem yerel halkın bu sürdürülebilirliği benimsemesini, içselleştirilmesini sağlıyor. Hem de okulun kendi başına sürdürülebilirliğini sağlıyor her anlamda. Hem sosyal, hem kültürel, hem ekonomik ve davranış açısından da yerleştiriyor. Bu tasarım sürecinde en başından itibaren mimarların hem öğrencileri hem halkı motive ederek belli atölyelerle motivasyon sağlayarak içselleştirmesini sağladı. Yani okumalarım o yöndeydi. Bu yüzden beni etkilediği için bu örneği ele aldım ben.
Okay, teşekkürler. Şunu da merak etmiştim. Bir de Türkçe kısaca söyleyeyim. Nasıl bir projeksiyon öngörüyorsun yeni okul tasarımında? Buradan ne öğrenmeliyiz? Sence okullar artık nasıl tasarlanmalı?
Evet, hatırladım şimdi hocam. Biraz heyecanlıyım, kusura bakmayın.
Okay.
Hocam, biraz heyecanlıyım hocam, kusura bakmayın. Şimdi hatırladım sorunuza ek olarak. Şöyle, bence okul tasarımlarında kullanıcı en başından itibaren, tabii biz mimarlar düşünüyoruz ama bence kullanıcılarla beraber ele alınması gerekiyor. Kullanıcıyı da katmalıyız biz. Gerekli eylemlerle, aksiyonlarla beraber. Onlara göre bir tasarım gerçekleştirmeliyiz. Evet, biz mimar olarak onları düşünüyoruz ama fiili olarak da bunu gerçekleştirirsek hem bizler hem kullanıcı için daha etkili bir tasarım olur. Hem öğrenci de sürecin içerisine dahil olduğu için daha bilinçli olacağını düşünüyorum.
Thank you very much, Melis.
You're
You're right. This is a kind of a challenging process in design and architecture production, I think, to welcoming all of the participants, get them together and motivate with the building. Thank you very much. And a last question to Arda. Your presentation is also very nice. Thank you very much. You are focusing on the structural system, creating the details and so on. That's very nice, which is really skipped mostly in the architecture design process. Do you have a kind of a proposal for just inviting again that kind of detailing or structure organization into the design process?
For the design process, we did a lot of working for researching, but the building was built in 1995. That's why I couldn't reach the files or details of the design process, design details. For the design, the information buildings have to be more reachable for the people, for example, more than the governmental buildings. The buildings have to be connect the area and the people. They have to be make the communication. The buildings have to work like this. For the architectural details, they have to be, for example, the dismantle. They have to be have features like dismantle. After they finish the missions of that area, the building can be removed from that area, and the people, local people, use the empty area for new buildings, for example, like that.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to all of you. It was a very exciting session, in my opinion. Thanks a lot to all of the audience. If there will be any more questions or any more comments, it's really welcomed. But if it's not, I'm just finalizing the session. I think there's no. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice evening.